Okay, what does Saracens relegation mean for not only England but other international teams going forward? In the short term, I think it benefits not just England but all the international teams that players are eligible to play for. So Liam Williams for Wales, for example, I think he'll be probably he'll be well rested. We know he's going back to Scarlets. We know that the relegation means all the games they're playing are dead rubbers. That means the pressure's just, the pressure to put players on the field to avoid relegation has been nullified. And I don't think Saracens want to risk their star players, considering they are still in the European Cup. But I think that's where they're going to be targeting, at least to have a one last hurrah with the team that they have, to win a one last piece of silverware with this squad. And even then, they're not guaranteed to get through to the semi-finals, considering the quarter-final that they have. Medium to long term is where it gets a bit more tricky. We know from the statements released that they're going to have to break up the squad that they have. We know that George Cruz is going to Japan. We know that Liam Williams, even though he's a Welsh player, is going back to Scarlets. So two of their star players are leaving at the end of the season. That has been guaranteed. Owen Farrell has made soundings that he's going to be willing to stay in the Championship with the club. Apart from that, we don't know what's going to happen to the Vinopolas. We don't know what's going to happen to Mario Taijay, for example, and other players. Where are they going to end up? What clubs are going to be able to sign them domestically if they are going to stay in England? And how many of those players will end up from that squad going overseas? And how many of the youth setup will end up being in the first team? They're also not guaranteed to get promoted at the first attempt. If they're going to have to break up this squad, then it makes it possibly less likely that they bounce back out the Championship at the first attempt. That is the interesting point. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens in the summer with player movement and how that also affects the England squad for the summer tour down under and then for the autumn internationals at the end of this year. Post the end of this year, this is where it gets really interesting. Will Owen Farrell want to stay more than one season in the Championship? If Saracens do fail to get promotion back at the first attempt, does that mean he moves on? There's a lot of unanswered questions there, but in the short term, because of the relegation, it's dead rubbers in the Premiership. They're not going to want to risk players unnecessarily in games that mean nothing. The same can be said for Leicester, London Irish, and those teams threatened with the relegation battle. The pressure's now off them. Will they rest also the players eligible for England? Will their star players also get a rest because they're playing dead rubbers? It doesn't matter where they finish. They're not going to get relegated as it stands, although there are calls to have a second team get relegated to the Championship and two Championship sides to get promoted. Those calls aren't going away, but we'll have to find out if Premiership Rugby decide to relegate a second team or not. That's an unanswered question. It's highly unlikely to happen. But things are going to change as well with the governance of the game domestically and the transparency of the club game. It has to. The salary cap also has to be reformed. There is an independent inquiry into that. So we may see changes to the salary cap. We may see changes to club transparency. And we'll obviously find out when the season's over how many of these players currently with Saracens stay, how many of them who do leave the club stay in England, and how many who leave the club end up playing overseas, be it in France, the Pro League, Super Rugby, or even if they are nearer the end of their international careers, Major League Rugby. They're going to get a payday over in North America. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. And also, if the RFU changes their international selection policy, at the moment you have to be playing in England to be eligible to play for England. Other nations have a special, like Matt Gitto style rule, that if you have so many caps, you can play overseas. That's going to be interesting to see if the RFU does change their selection policy because of this scandal and the relegation. Because so many of their key players play at Saracens. The spine of the team is a Saracen spine. There are also some Leicester players in there as well, like Johnny May and George Ford. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see what actually happens going forward for next season. If a second team does get relegated, most likely, if it was to happen today, if the season was to end now and they were to say we'll relegate a second team, it's most likely Leicester. And this really throws everything up in the air about what's going to happen next season. So there's still a lot of unanswered questions. But in the short term, I think it benefits England and the other nations that have players eligible in the Saracen squad, because they're probably going to rest their star players moving forward. They're probably going to put a lot of their youth products out on the field for the remaining Premiership games, give them some game time, and that could also put them in the shop window as well, which could also make it more interesting for Saracens next season if some of their up-and-coming stars get signed by the clubs as well, because they'll cost less under the salary cap because they haven't really proven themselves yet. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. Lots of unanswered questions. The medium to long term is very uncertain. The short term, I think England and other nations benefit with players being rested, with the dead rubbers that are in place. But there we go. Thank you very much for watching. What do you think happens? Place your comments below. I'm really interested to see the feedback on this one. And for now, thank you very much for watching. Place a like and subscribe if you like the debate on this channel, and I'll have some more videos for you very, very soon.